You're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Still to come on our program. This year's St. Petersburg International Economic Forum seeks some answers to tough questions on building an economy of trust at a time of protectionism and big income inequality. That's up for discussion right after this. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei, coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. This year's St. Petersburg International Economic Forum will be held this Thursday to Saturday. Building economy of trust will be the main topic. From inequality to reviving protectionism, the forum will be served as a dialogue on solving the differences and at the same time looking for responses to common opportunities and challenges brought by new technologies.
Worthwhile ideas and initiatives in the works. The 22nd St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is just around the corner. Media reports say the forum expects about 15,000 participants this year. The forum was first held in 1997 and became an annual business event from the following year. Since 2005, it has been under the auspices of the Russian president, who has also attended each event. Participants include representatives from business communities, heads of international organizations, public officials, experts, scientists, and journalists. Since first being established 21 years ago, the forum has gradually developed into a platform for the discussion of key issues in the world economy, regional integration, and the development of new industrial and technological sectors, as well as of the global challenges facing Russia and other nations. But in recent years, the economic sanctions on Russia by Western countries have been dominating the forum discussions. In fact, the Russian government has carried out strong measures to stabilize the country's finances. Backwardness is our main threat and enemy, President Vladimir Putin said in this year's State of the Nation speech, and he also set a slew of ambitious economic goals, including cutting Russia's poverty rate by half over the next 6 years. Meanwhile, Russia is the host country of the 2018 FIFA World Cup next month. Russia's central bank has unveiled a special 100-ruble banknote ahead of football's most lucrative event. At present, not only Russia but the whole world is facing unprecedented economic risks and challenges. This year's St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is expected to find ways of building an economy of trust against the backdrop of rising protectionism.
For more discussion, we are joined in Beijing by Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics with the University of International Business and Economics. Also joining us in Moscow, Russia, Mark Sloboda, International Relations and Security Analyst. Thank you, sir. And in New York, U.S., we invited Max Wolf, Professor of Economics from New School University. Welcome as well. Let me begin with you, Mr. Sloboda. St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, that's one of the platforms Russia has hoped to create as one of the top-notch economic forum. Has it reached that stage?
No, it hasn't. Russia has optimistic hopes for this format and keeps pushing it forward in the hope of attracting investment. But the last few years, the illegal economic sanctions war that the West has waged unilaterally against Russia, coupled with the oil price war with Saudi Arabia that dealt a much more significant blow to Russia's economy, have led to an atmosphere of kind of stagnation with regards to the Russian economy. Investors, with increasing rounds of Western sanctions, have shied away from investing in the Russian economy. But in the last year, despite the continuation of these measures, things are looking up in terms of Russian GDP, the macroeconomy,
right.
And I think we may see a little bit more growth out of this year's settlement, but certainly not one of the top-tier economic forums in the world now.
Not yet. Professor Wolf, we've seen the struggle of the U.S. side, in a way, thinking about whether to attend or not to attend, what format to attend. For example, Ambassador John Huntsman, who is the U.S. ambassador to the United States, promised to speak, and then he withdrew from the panels he was designed to participate because of another oligarch who was actually on the list of the U.S. sanctions that was likely to be on the same panel with him. How is that example and case study, in a way, reflect about the complex relationship and the feeling that Russia and the United States feel toward one another?
Yes, so unfortunately, there's a lot for the world to gain and for both the United States and Russia to gain for closer, good relations between the United States and Russia. Quite unfortunately, though, those have not been the case, and it, quite frankly, doesn't look particularly promising that we're heading into the better relationships that would be beneficial. I think there are a bunch of issues here. One is that the United States has withdrawn from a series of international commitments and treaties, and that has created a little bit of hostility, or more than a little bit, in many zones for all kinds of reasons, whether that be our new sort of protectionist policies on trade, withdraw from various climate agreements, or withdraw from various other cooperative agreements, NAFTA, TPP, et cetera.
Right.
So that's created an atmosphere of, let's say, non-cooperation. Additionally, there's been a lot of political heat around the relationship of various members of the Trump campaign with various parties in Russia, and some issues to do with the 2016 elections in Russia. So politically, what was already difficult because of the global environment is more difficult bilaterally between Russia and the U.S. for political reasons.
Right. There are fundamental differences, some argue, Mr. Sloboda, between Russia and the United States. And certainly the interests of the two countries are dragging the two apart from one another. Secondly is, as what Professor Wolf just said, Mr. Mueller's investigation is still going on beyond the 1 year time. So while that is going on, how much do you think the Trump administration will be able to have in terms of maneuvering space in dealing with Russia?
I think Trump has pretty much given up on the possibility of improving relations. He's far more concentrated on his own political survival in the U.S. And I think this kind of pettiness, where not only do we see Russian businessmen sanctioned by the United States, but even the U.S. ambassador, supposedly his job is to meet with not only the government but the economic elite, with refusing to even sit down and share the same forum is really, I think, far more demonstrative of the type of partisan political climate in the United States. I don't think there's going to be any movement. I think everything is focused on the midterm elections right now.
Right.
And as far as U.S.-Russia relations goes with this economic summit, I don't think we're going to see any movement whatsoever.
U.S.-Russia relationship is only part of the story we're likely to see in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Professor Liu, another bigger story is, since the Cold War, the end of it, people see trade and economic ties usually become the foundation of any relationship, particularly between and among countries. But now, it seems that things are changing. Once again, whether trade and economic ties will still be the basis on top of which other relationships, be it geopolitical or social issues and things like that, can rely on. That's become a bigger question. St. Petersburg Economic Forum likely also be a platform to reflect that debate. Professor.
Well, people, particularly in the socialist bloc, really suffered a great deal over the ideological stereotype that was really looming for a long period of time. So therefore, there was quite a sort of rebellion after the Cold War that, well, they go more for the material comfort and go for utility, variety of goods, so they need to fill their stomach and dress them more nicely. But right now, the situation is really converging because they see that in order to guarantee, to predict that I'm going to have nice food and good clothes and affordability, so there needs to be institutional changes, there needs to be certainty in the governance, in geopolitics, and also in the big nation relationship.
Right. Talking about big nation relationship, Professor Wolf, we still see the Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, together with the French President, Mr. Macron, are going to visit Russia. And they are also going to meet with Russian President Mr. Putin on the sideline of the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. So it seems that within the so-called the West, there are different views about how relationships should be approached with Russia. Your thought?
This is so absolutely. Particularly, the United States has taken a very nationalist and very narrow view of energy policy and has been trying to influence pipeline routes in ways that are disadvantageous for Russia and advantageous for American exporters down the road, and that has to do with energy security, both for folks in Germany, France, Japan, so the nations that you immediately referenced in the comment, as well as some beyond that. And so that's become another sort of wedge. And I would say that the Trump administration has been pretty radically different in its disposition toward allies of all types, new, established, or emerging. And what we've seen with the Iran sanctions decision, the trade policies, the tenor of trade negotiations with China, the tenor of trade negotiations with Canada and Mexico, is a sort of attempt by the United States to unilaterally rewrite and force new rules. And that does one thing, unfortunately, historically very well, which is it creates new constituencies opposed to your policy. And I think we're beginning to see that. I think that's part of what's going on with Mr. Macron, as well as Shinzo Abe decisions to have some of the meetings, particularly on energy policy.
Mr. Sloboda, if you look at what Shinzo Abe is likely to discuss with Vladimir Putin, one could take a look at some of the list of things that the two sides agreed upon just a few years ago when the two heads of states were meeting. And now it seems that some of those are already being in the action stage. So despite whatever is going on between Washington and Moscow, it seems that other capitals are thinking differently. Or are they? Mr. Sloboda, your judgment here.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see much dialogue between the U.S. and Russia. I think this entire summit is actually going to be overshadowed by what we can see as a Trump regime in the U.S. that is effectively waging economic war on much of the world. Not only, of course, does it have ever-increasing rounds of sanctions against Russia, it's engaged in an economic war of tariffs now that it started with China. It has sanctions, of course, on Syria and North Korea. And on top of pulling unilaterally out of the Iran deal, it is leveling new sanctions against Iran and threatening to level sanctions against European companies that continue to do business with Iran. Now, this is coupled in the last few days with the Trump administration's thinly veiled economic threats against Germany, that unless it cancels a long-planned Nord Stream 2 energy pipeline that will go underneath the Baltic Sea to Germany, that it will engage in another round of unilateral economic war on Europe. And I think that this is a type of arrogance and bombacity. I think that you might actually see a little bit of movement of European leaders towards Russia, at least insofar as regards their own energy security. I mean, Trump dictating energy security to Europe, not to mention trade issues. I mean, Macron just recently asked rhetorically about the possibility of U.S. sanctioning EU companies. What, are we vassals of the U.S.? Well, unfortunately to that, up till now at least, the answer to that has been we. The Europeans have been vassals to the U.S., and maybe perhaps at this summit we'll see a little bit of independence exerting their own, at least, economic sovereignty.
When we are talking about the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, one of the other things that comes to mind is what are some of the initiatives that have been proposed by countries participating, or countries that are willing, despite of the deadlocks that we are seeing today, despite of the conflict between the United States and many of the economies in the world, what can be done Mr. Liu, here I have to go to you about the Belt and Road Initiative, about the Eurasian Corridor. Two concepts. One is the initiative originally coming by China, and the other, of course, originally coming from Russia. Will these two initiatives become, in a way, part of the hope about what can be done, Professor Liu?
Well, it can be integrated as a part of the package because, initially we've been talking about the two roads. One is on the road, that's typically the Silk Road Belt, and then the maritime sea roads. And then, we have really expanded together by working with many of those partners. The big land bridge, the through Siberia, and now we are talking about the fourth road, which can really penetrate through the Antarctic Ocean. So where Russia can play a very important role in terms of the ice breaking and in safeguarding those transportation. And now, it is really a perfect synergy if China can work more with the Russia and all the neighboring countries very substantially by converging on the same type of railway tracks that can really provide a faster and safer transportation and logistic service along the Belt and Road. So we need better coordination.
But better coordination, really? Mr. Sloboda, I mean, on the one hand, there could be repetition and competition between these two initiatives, even though two sides have been saying, no, 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 we're having wonderful cooperation. Secondly is the issue of trust as well, particularly the issue of trust when it comes to business deals. Whether those business deals that have been promised a long time will actually be implemented, whether conditions are ripe in both systems and situations in both countries that will make those deals done. Mr. Sloboda, we have seen some previous case studies that would suggest the other way around.
I think the One Belt, One Road has largely subsumed that project, even saved it, you could say. And Chinese capital has been essential. Russian-Chinese trade have been growing dramatically. I haven't seen any signs of real competition in the area. There has long been that Russia would take the forefront politically, socially, culturally because of its long-standing ties, and China would take the economic and infrastructure initiative, which it's specialized in. And I think it's worked extremely well. I think it will continue to work that way. And I think that, Russia's increasing ties with China and decoupling from the West and looking to its east, both to China and to its partners in the former Soviet Union in the east, is the best path of development, and perhaps the only economic path of development that Russia really has at the moment.
Professor Liu, before we go, after the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the Russian president is likely to make a visit to China in Beijing. After that, he's also going to the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. So it seems that there are a lot of interactions, very intense, and in a way with a lot of contents also, as some suggest. Professor Liu, your thought?
Well, there has been a lot of fanfare and multilateral, multi-layers of communication channels, and we also have noticed substantial progress, but there is still large potential that needs to be untapped, between China and Russia in particular. I think one very important issue that I really collected opinions from the business community is that we still rely on better rule of law between these two countries. And so because investors and traders, they need better predictability. And of course, particularly in terms of protection of intellectual property is also very important. So therefore, after all the big guys talk, there should be, the guys that can really walk the walk to produce the right type of action plan and also the milestones that can be achieved.
There we go. Thank you so much, Professor Liu Baocheng, Mr. Mark Sloboda, Professor Max Wolf. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. That is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From Tian Wei and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights from China and around the world. Good night.